On today's updates, we have Puerto Rico having a power grid failure, 340,000 people losing power due to issues with their power grid. We have the heat dome that has been hovering over the western states and currently over Texas and New Mexico is going to be heading east into the Midwest and the South. It's going to impact a lot of people. It may impact you where you are. We're going to talk about that. Also, another cargo ship on fire out by Yemen. Eggs in Australia, and wow, a flood of intelligence from you guys on what's going on with insulin. A lot to talk about there. If you're diabetic or someone in your life is, you need to hear this conversation. Scary, but there are also some practical tips on that will help you make sure that you're getting insulin that works out there. That and even more to discuss on today's Poplar Report. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. And these are your updates. These are your reports come from people just like you from all over the world about what's going on out there, sharing information so that we can help each other through what is coming. We do want to mention our sponsor, Genesis Gold Group. If you have a retirement account, a 401k, IRA, and you want to get some of or all of it over into gold, silver, or platinum, physical metals, and you want to know how you can do that without tax impacts and stuff like that, you might want to talk to Jonathan and his team. They can answer all of your questions, let you know everything involved with it. There's no commitment if you reach out to them. There'll be a link at the end of the video. We do have a community post out there just asking you guys what you guys think and feel about these updates that we have coming out. I've noticed a relatively sharp drop-off of interest in them. I'm not sure if I just didn't get good thumbnails out or whether it's an actual change in you guys' opinion on that. You cannot get community posts if you're on the TV, but if you're on a computer or a tablet or something like that, if you go to the page and you go to the community tab, that will actually bring up not only polls that we do on this channel, but also will bring up things like the deals that we do mention. When I find deals out there, I post them up on the community page, and usually it gets out to like 100 or 200 of you guys. Make sure you're hitting the thumbs up on those things in order for it to share with other people, because YouTube doesn't like you clicking on links and going elsewhere to go find those deals. But if you found those deals, you know that most of the time I'm buying whatever it is too, because it's I'm like, hey, this is a good deal, and I share it with you guys. But that community post asking about how you guys feel about the updates. I'll be listening to your posts and your comments on that, particularly just to see if we need to make some tweaks or changes to these update videos. Anyway, let's jump into Puerto Rico. 340,000 people, which is a lot of people on that little island. Lost power Wednesday night. So last night, wait, it's Friday now, isn't it? Man, the week goes by fast. So Wednesday night, basically they lost 2 power plants that went offline. Now, Luma Energy said that the reason why the power plants went offline was because they had an issue with the transmission lines. Puerto Rico is a mess when it comes to power. It's just continual mismanagement out there. Frankly, to unpack all the corruption and the bad choices that they've made over the last number of decades would take literally a whole separate video. Let me know down in the comments down below if you'd like me to do a whole video on just what socialism looks like when it's running a power grid. Because where California is going, where Texas is going, is where Puerto Rico already is. The heat dome that is currently over Texas and New Mexico right now, hot temperatures, will be moving over to the Midwest and all the way up to Illinois, and then it's going to settle down in the South into Mississippi, Alabama, those states down there. Big, nasty heat dome over those areas. And then it's going to start coming up north a bit and to the East Coast, Pittsburgh, Ohio, all that stuff. We're going to get hammered with that. It's looking like it's going to get a little bit hot in a bunch of places, and it's going to cool off some other places too. So check your weather. Some big weather shifts are happening out there. Of course, the heavy flooding down in Florida, we talked about that yesterday. All right, so this morning, another cargo ship off the coast of Yemen issued a distress call after being struck by a missile and catching on fire. Now, this is in addition to all the ships that I previously reported. Whenever I mention these ships, I don't mention them twice. And you'll notice that on this channel, I don't mention news stories more than once, okay? So a lot of you guys are like, hey, you didn't mention this. It's like, yeah, we mentioned that 2 weeks ago. I'll try to remind you on some things that are real important as they come up, but I'll also let you know that we already talked about those things. But this cargo ship is a new cargo ship. We see a significant increase in Yemen Houthi missile attacks on civilian cargo ships, and we're also seeing a significant increase in damage that they're doing, and they're just actually hitting more often. Before, on the first round, it was like missile came near, almost hit us, and the ones that did hit them were not starting fires, and they were not causing major damage. But recent attacks have been damaging engine rooms, have been setting the ships afire. It seems like we've hit a new class of missiles. It looks like the Houthis are basically the experimentation room for Iran's missiles technology, that they're trying out new things and they're trying to see what will work. And that's one of the things I've said is so dangerous about the situation, is that we're giving them a place to field test their equipment on us, where they can just keep shooting at us and ships near us to test our missile defense systems, see what missiles can get around our defense systems, what our capabilities actually are. This is very, very dangerous, because I believe that they're sharing this information with the Chinese, because the Chinese have ships in that area and they're watching and they're observing. Chinese naval ships are watching. So this is pretty scary that that's kind of going down, and they're getting a lot more lethal, whatever they're doing. KP says, my local Dollar General has been selling expired food and nuts in Louisiana. We've been saying check those dates on everything, right? But Dollar General is a little more prone to selling expired stuff than other places, right? Ed says, Australia, there's only one major hatchery in the whole of Australia. I don't know if that's true, but they're saying eggs are going to be a problem for the foreseeable future. They did have major cullings there at least one of the farms. I don't know how diversified their egg markets are, but take that one with a grain of salt. I don't know if it's true or not. Gail says, train a team. My mom always kept a deep pantry for just in case of things like layoffs, etc. I taught them to my kids. This is in the conversation of how do you introduce these things to young people who have never experienced hard times before? How do you start sharing the idea of prepping with them, saving up for hard times, and just things that they may see as kind of weird, right? And so that's what Gail is sharing. Stacking up on things in case the store doesn't have what you want the next time. Sneak those prepping tips in however you can. And that's great advice, and you've heard that from many channels out there before, which is teach as you go. Share your values and answer the questions of why are you doing what you're doing. So when you're doing things that you know are different than what other parents are doing with their kids, explain to them the reasons why, so that when they find out, every family doesn't do this, and some friend or someone in college or something like that asks them, hey, why did your family do that? They'll actually have an answer. And you know what? They may start realizing, hey, my parents knew more than their parents did. and one other recommendation is, whenever you can, tie your practices into history and traditions, right? Share that this isn't some crazy kook idea that we came up with, but rather this is something that our grandparents used to do. And this is what they did in the frontier days. This is what they did when there potentially be bad harvests and such like that. And here's some historical examples of not too recent past where this would really been helpful. And some people that didn't have anything stocked up maybe suffered because they didn't think ahead. This is from No BS Granny. Steve, this is for our friend in the UK with a question about the insulin. So we had Torin over in the UK saying, is my insulin being watered down? And so we're going to go through that here. We're going to hear from a number of different people. We're going to hear from a doctor's office. We're going to also hear from people who have pharmacists in their family discussing this a little bit, and a lot of good conversation here that you're not going to hear anywhere else, definitely not in the mainstream media. So, is the insulin out there being watered down? I want to sum it up for you in case you don't watch the rest of the video. I don't think that they're watering it down, but I mean, I can't prove that, yes or no, right? But because we can't prove it anyway, I usually default to the incompetent side of things rather than nefarious. But insulin does need to be stored properly, and with supply chain disruptions and issues going on out there, I think that perhaps a lot of the insulin that's hitting our store shelves is either old or improperly stored. So, with that in mind, that's the summary of a bunch of this stuff. But let's get into the facts and your guys' reports. No BS Granny says, Steve, this is for our friend in the UK with a question about insulin. My youngest son is a type 1 diabetic. He says his insulin is not working properly for him either. His insulin pens aren't working right. He says some of his insulin pens are cloudy and they don't smell like insulin. Now, this is something that's going to come up from a bunch of you guys saying that you sniff it or you smell it and it doesn't smell the same. And that's a concern out there. And we're going to hear some people who are professionals who are saying it doesn't smell the same. Okay, but notice there it says some. Some aren't working. They don't smell like insulin. It has a distinct smell. Also, his blood sugars are so hard to get control of, and he is also starting to get sick off of meats and other foods that he has never had problems eating before. Have any other diabetics developed any food sensitivity issues? Thank you, Steve, for all you do. So that's a question we're tossing out to you guys. Are any other diabetics suddenly noticing a brand new food allergies coming up or sensitivity to certain foods that shouldn't be triggering insulin and blood sugars? Kenneth says, I've been dealing with insulin issues for over a year. Seems to be extremely strong, then extremely weak. I've talked to the pharmacist about it, and they just look at me and look down the counter and don't say a word. So pharmacists aren't denying it. Cindy says, my blood sugar isn't responding to the insulin like it used to either. Makes me wonder as well. Now, there were a couple skeptics out there tossing out, they didn't seem to have any credentials or anything like that, but saying, maybe it's insulin resistance that's happening, that your bodies are becoming more resistant to the insulin. So that's another theory that has been postulated. Sound Junkie says, 40-year type 1 diabetic here. I too have had issues with Lispro fast-acting insulin pens. I had to throw 3 of them out after not getting my blood sugar to come down. Even after priming and changing pen needles. Yes, watered down, USA, Oregon. So some people are saying watered down. Saints Army says, we are noticing the same thing with insulin in Michigan. Started to see something different last fall, and it's getting worse. Aaron says, yes, it's true what they are doing to the insulin. I have a family member who is a pharmacist. I gave her an insulin bottle, and she got some out and said, this doesn't smell like insulin. A pharmacist said this doesn't smell like insulin. It's a mixture of sterile water and insulin. People, please put on your social media, I don't have it. How's It says, I work for a physician's office on the Big Island of Hawaii. Patients that have diabetes have been having uncontrollable sugar levels despite using their insulin and watching their diets. So some people out there saying maybe you're not watching your diet, maybe something's going on with that. But I'm hearing from enough of you guys saying, I'm watching my diet and I'm taking the same amount of insulin and it's not working. So this is from a physician's office saying they're seeing a bunch of people where this is happening. I've also heard of complaints that their albuterol asthma inhalers aren't helping or seem weak. Another issue I've been coming across is that patients that have been coming in with gastrointestinal issues, especially the younger patients, complaints of extreme fatigue and malaise, especially the ones who got that and the extras, if you know what I'm saying. Homeschooling mom says the insulin may not be watered down, and this is where I'm drawing this kind of from. It might be a storage issue. If the insulin is warmed above 46 degrees, it will only last 28 days, even if it's cooled later. After 28 days, the insulin starts losing its efficacy. So, friends, I'm putting those things together. A number of you guys mentioned the proper storage of insulin. One or two of you mentioned that you saw that they were not in the cooler at the place that you got it at. So this is where I'm going to come up with a recommendation here, and you guys let me know if this is off base or whatever. If your insulin seems to be very weak, watered down, or some of the doses are not working, you might want to check a different pharmacy that has better controls on how they're getting the insulin from the production to you. Also, if you can, check the dates. I don't know if that's a thing, but make sure it's not old insulin, and make sure that you have as few stops along the way between the production and you, and make sure that it's being refrigerated and handled properly along the way. So you may be able to buy from a different pharmacy, more dependable insulin that was stored properly. All right. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. But there's something going on. The question is what? I know some of you guys are going to be like, they're trying to kill us all. And that may be the case, but how do you prove that, right? How do you prove that? Madam K says, I have a friend who is a vet. Jack said he was having a hard time getting his blood sugar levels numbers down. His blood sugar is so high he gets dizzy and doesn't want to take more insulin because he is at double dose already. Said his doctor has changed his dose. He said he has been sick since and is going back to his regular dose, but it isn't enough now. Jack doesn't look good and he's in his 80s. Thanks. From Northeast Wisconsin. So if people are getting insulin that's not properly stored or it's too old and it is a lot weaker, they may not be taking enough. But then how do you measure that, right? That's a serious issue out there, and I don't know how to raise the red flag on that or get the powers to be to actually start testing the insulin at the store level, at the retail level, to see if people are getting proper dosages or if they're getting old, expired insulin that is no longer effective. That is a big question out there. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what we can do about that, other than if you're getting bad stuff, you might want to try different pharmacies. Maybe go to a fancier pharmacy that seems to take more pride and more diligence in their supplies. Also, that's the question is, because we've been having insulin shortages, are they going into the warehouse and pulling out really old stuff? And maybe that's what's going on out there. Pauline says, I lost my mom at 99 years old and 7 months. Let's hear a word of wisdom from her mom. She said we haven't seen anything yet and that it will be bad. She obviously had a long life perspective of history. We've had it really good recently, folks. And when you look back at history, there have been some dark times even in the last 100 years. And we're due. We're due to go back through hard times again. We have weak people in control who are going to bring hard times upon us. All right, friends, get stocked up. Do what you can. Be right with your Lord. If you haven't checked out the Bible channel, go check out the Bible channel. You can always just type in the search bar, Poplar Bible Studies. We got Bible studies. We're going through 2 Timothy right there over on the other channel. And we also have Poplar Prepper channel. That's practical tips and how-tos and interviews. All right, folks, thanks so much for joining with us. If you want to get some more information from Genesis Gold Group, there's a link right there. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up there. Thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.